Get out of my house, you crazy. Jake's words echo in my mind as I sit on the curb, tears streaming down my face. I can still feel the sting of his hands shoving me to the floor, the coldness in his eyes as he threw me out like garbage. This is what my 57th birthday has come to. My own son treating me like I'm nothing, like I haven't spent my entire life loving him, raising him, sacrificing for him. And now, because of that wretched wife of his, he can't even stand the sight of me. Amber. Even her name makes my blood boil. From the moment Jake brought her home, I knew she was trouble. The way she looked at me, like I was just an obstacle in her path. The way she whispered in Jake's ear, turning him against me little by little. I warned him not to marry her, begged him to see through her manipulations, but he was blinded by lust, by the idea that she loved him unconditionally. The only thing that woman loves is herself. And now, because of her, I've lost everything, my son, my grandchildren, the family I've dedicated my life to. Cast aside like yesterday's trash. As I sit there, wallowing, a car pulls up beside me. The window rolls down, revealing the concerned face of my best friend Maggie. Damn, what happened? What are you doing out here? She asks, her voice laced with worry. I can barely choke out the words. Jake, he kicked me out, said I was crazy and that it was his house now. Maggie's eyes widen in shock, then narrow in anger. He did what? On your birthday? Oh, honey, get in the car. You're coming home with me. I climb into the passenger seat, my body numb. As Maggie drives, she keeps glancing over at me, her brow furrowed. This is unacceptable, Diane. Jake can't treat you like this. Something has to be done. I shake my head sadly. What can I do, Max? He's a grown man. He's made his choice. Maggie purses her lips, a determined glint in her eye. Maybe so, but that doesn't mean he gets to get away with it. You're his mother, for God's sake. It's time Jake and that wicked wife of his learned that there are consequences for their actions. I turn to her, confused. What are you saying? A slow smile spreads across Maggie's face. I'm saying, my dear, that it's time for a little revenge, and I know just the person to help us get it. As we speed into the night, I feel a flicker of something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I can make Jake and Amber pay for the pain they've caused. That maybe karma will finally catch up to them. The day had started off well enough. It was my birthday, and despite everything that had happened with Jake, I was determined to make the most of it. I spent the morning tidying up the house, putting up a few decorations, and preparing a special dinner. I even bought a cake from the bakery down the street, the one Jake always loved as a kid. Around noon, I called Jake, my heart fluttering with a mix of hope and apprehension. To my surprise, he actually answered. Hey, Mom, what's up? His tone was neutral, guarded. I took a deep breath. Well, I was wondering if you, Amber, and the kids would like to come over for dinner tonight. It's my birthday, and I thought it would be nice to spend some time together as a family. There was a long pause. I could hear muffled voices in the background, like he was discussing it with someone. Finally, he spoke. Yeah, okay, we can do that. What time? Relief washed over me. How about 6 p.m.? I'm making your favorite, lasagna. Sure, see you then. He hung up before I could say anything else. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. By the time 6:00 p.m. rolled around, everything was perfect. The lasagna was bubbling in the oven, the table was set, and the cake was proudly displayed on the counter. Right on time, the doorbell rang. I practically ran to answer it, a huge smile on my face. But the moment I opened the door, my heart sank. Jake stood there, a scowl etched on his features. Beside him was Amber, her lips curled into a sneer. The kids were nowhere to be seen. Where are the children? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Amber let out a harsh laugh. We decided it was best they didn't come. Wouldn't want them exposed to any more of your toxic influence. I felt like I've been slapped. Toxic influence? What are you talking about? She stepped forward, jabbing a finger at me. Don't play dumb, Diane. We all know what a terrible mother you were. The way you turned Jake against his own father, the constant guilt-tripping and manipulation. It's no wonder he wants nothing to do with you. Tears stung my eyes. I looked to Jake, silently pleading for him to defend me, but he just stood there, his arms crossed, saying nothing. That's not true, I managed to choke out. I've always loved and supported Jake. I would never do anything to hurt him. Amber's eyes flashed with malice. Drop the martyr act. You're nothing but a selfish, vindictive woman who can't stand the fact that Jake has moved on with his life, that he chose me over you. Something inside me snapped. Before I knew what I was doing, I lunged forward, ready to slap that smug look off her face. But Jake stepped between us, grabbing my wrist in a painful grip. Don't you dare touch my wife, he growled. You're pathetic, you know that. Coming up with this whole birthday charade, trying to worm your way back in. Well, it's not going to work. We're done with you. But that, he shoved me backward, sending me stumbling. I caught myself on the doorframe, tears now flowing freely down my cheeks. Jake, please, I whispered. I'm your mother, I shouted, but he just shook his head, his eyes cold. Not anymore, he muttered. Come on, Amber, let's go. I watched helplessly as they turned and walked away, slamming the door behind them. The sound echoed through the empty house, a brutal finality to it. There I stood, alone on my birthday, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in the aftermath of Jake and Amber's cruelty. Minutes? Hours. It all blurred together. The pain in my chest was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. A deep, aching void that threatened to swallow me whole. Eventually, I managed to close the door, my hands shaking. I stumbled to the couch, collapsing onto the cushions as sobs racked my body. How could he do this to me, my own son, treating me like I was nothing, like I hadn't spent my entire life loving and caring for him? The sound of my phone ringing jolted me out of my despair. I glanced at the screen, seeing Maggie's name. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, not wanting to burden her with my problems. But the thought of facing this alone was too much to bear. I answered, my voice thick with tears. Hello. Dying. What's wrong? Did something happen with Jake? Maggie's concern was my undoing, and I broke down. The whole sordid story spilled out between gasps and sobs. Maggie listened patiently, offering words of comfort and support. That's it, she said firmly when I finished. This has gone too far, Diane. Jake and Amber can't keep treating you like this. It's time for them to face some consequences. I snippled, wiping my eyes. What do you mean? I mean, it's time for a little payback. They think they can just walk all over you, but they've got another thing coming. You're a strong woman, Diane. It's time to start acting like it. Her words ignited a spark within me, a flicker of anger amidst the pain. She was right. I couldn't just sit here and wallow. I needed to do something to take back control. Okay, I said, my voice steadier now. What did you have in mind? I could practically hear Maggie's grin through the phone. Meet me at the diner in an hour. I've got someone I want you to meet. Trust me, he's going to be a big help. An hour later, I was sitting across from Maggie in a booth at the local diner. She had a mischievous glint in her eye as she sipped her coffee. So, who is this mystery person? I asked, curiosity getting the better of me. As if on cue, the bell above the door jingled. Maggie waved at someone behind me. There he is now. I turned, my eyes widening as a tall, broad-shouldered man approached our table. He had a rugged, no-nonsense look about him, like someone who had seen his fair share of trouble. Diane, meet my brother Carlos, Maggie said, gesturing for him to sit. Carlos nodded at me, his gaze assessing. Maggie filled me in on your situation. I'm sorry to hear about what your son and his wife did. That's rough. I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant, even as the pain twisted in my gut. It is what it is, but Maggie seems to think you can help. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. I can. In my line of work, I've learned that everyone has secrets, skeletons in their closet. And from what Maggie's told me, I'm betting your daughter-in-law has more than a few. A tingle of anticipation ran down my spine. What are you saying? Carlos smiled, slow and dangerous. I'm saying let me dig into Amber's past. If there's dirt to be found, I'll find it. And once we have that ammunition, well, let's just say karma has a way of coming back around. I sat back, my mind reeling with the possibilities. Could this really work? Could I finally make Jake and Amber pay for what they'd done? Looking into Carlos's confident eyes, I made my decision. I'm in. Let's do this. He nodded, satisfied. Excellent. Give me a week. I'll be in touch. As he stood to leave, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, of determination. They thought they could break me, but they were wrong. It was time for revenge. The week crawled by, each day an eternity of waiting and wondering. I tried to keep myself busy, throwing myself into cleaning the house, running errands, anything to distract from the constant churning of my thoughts. What would Carlos find? Would it be enough to bring Jake and Amber to their knees? Maggie checked in on me daily, offering words of encouragement and support. She was the only thing keeping me sane, the only person who truly understood the depth of my pain and anger. Finally, on the 7th day, my phone rang. It was Carlos. Diane, it's me. "I got something. Can you meet me at my office in an hour?" My heart leaped into my throat. Of course, I'll be there. I arrived at Carlos's office with 15 minutes to spare, my nerves jangling. Maggie was already there, pacing the small waiting area. She gave me a tight hug when I entered. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, searching my face. I nodded, steeling myself. As ready as I'll ever be. Carlos emerged from his office, a grim expression on his face. "Come on in, ladies." We settled into the chairs opposite his desk, the air thick with tension. Carlos opened a manila folder, spreading out a series of documents and photographs. "So I did some digging into Amber's background," he began, tapping the papers. "And let me tell you, this woman is no saint." He slid a document towards me. "First off, she has a criminal record, embezzlement from her previous job. She managed to avoid jail time, but it wasn't pretty." I stared at the paper, a mugshot of Amber staring back at me. She looked younger in the mugshot, but those cold eyes were unmistakable. Carlos continued, his voice grave. "That's not all," he said, sliding another document toward me. "Amber is also a person of interest in the death of her ex-boyfriend." Maggie gasped, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking. Carlos handed me a newspaper clipping. 2 years ago, her ex was found dead under mysterious circumstances. The police suspected foul play, but they could never prove anything. Amber was the last person to see him alive. I scanned the article, my eyes catching on phrases like asterisk, suspicious death asterisk, and asterisk, ongoing investigation asterisk. My mind reeled trying to reconcile this information with the woman my son had married. "So, what does this mean?" Maggie asked, voicing the question I couldn't. Carlos leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "It means we have leverage. It means that if this information were to come to light, Amber's life as she knows it would be over. Her reputation, her marriage, everything." A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. "So, what do we do now?" A slow smile spread across Carlos's face. "Now we use it. We let Amber know that we have this information and that if she doesn't want it to go public, she needs to convince Jake to make things right with you." Maggie nodded, her eyes gleaming. "And if she refuses?" Carlos shrugged. "Then we go to the police. We let them reopen the investigation into her ex's death. One way or another, Amber will face the consequences of her actions." I sat there stunned, trying to process it all. Could it really be this simple? Could I really make Amber pay for what she'd done, for turning Jake against me? Looking at the determination on Maggie and Carlos's faces, I felt a surge of strength. They believed in me, believed that I deserved justice, and for the first time since that awful birthday, I believed it too. "Let's do it," I said, my voice steady. "Let's make them pay." Carlos grinned, a predatory gleam in his eye. "Excellent. Give me a day to put everything in motion. By this time tomorrow, Amber won't know what hit her." As we left the office, Maggie squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing, Diane. Don't ever doubt that." I squeezed back, feeling a sense of purpose, of righteous anger. They had picked the wrong woman to mess with. It was time for Amber to learn that lesson the hard way. True to his word, Carlos called me the next day. "It's done," he said, a note of satisfaction in his voice. "I've sent all the information to Amber, along with a little message letting her know that if she doesn't want it to go public, she needs to convince Jake to make amends with you." I felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with nervousness. "Do you think it'll work?" "Only one way to find out," Carlos replied. "But trust me, with the dirt we have on her, she'd be crazy not to comply." I held out, my mind racing. Would Amber really cave? Would she really force Jake to apologize, to make things right? A part of me dared to hope, even as another part whispered that it was too good to be true. Hours passed with no word. I paced my living room, jumping at every sound, convinced it was the doorbell or the phone. But as evening fell, there was still nothing. Just as I was about to give up and go to bed, there was a pounding at the door. My heart in my throat, I opened it to find Jake standing there, his face a mask of fury. "What the hell did you do?" He snarled, pushing past me into the house. I stumbled back, caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" He whirled on me, his eyes blazing. "Don't play dumb. Amber told me everything about the private investigator, about you digging up her past. What, you thought you could blackmail her into making me forgive you?" I stood my ground, lifting my chin. I didn't blackmail anyone. I simply let her know that her actions have consequences, that she can't just destroy my life and get away with it. Jake let out a harsh laugh. "Destroy your life? Are you serious right now? You're the one who's trying to destroy asterisk our asterisk marriage, asterisk our asterisk family. First with your constant guilt-tripping and manipulation, and now this." Anger surged through me, hot and bright. "I'm not the one who turned you against me, Jake. That was all Amber. She's poisoned you. Can't you see that? She's a criminal, a liar, maybe even a murderer." For a moment, Jake looked stunned, then his face hardened. You're unbelievable. You really think I'm going to believe your crazy accusations over my own wife, the mother of my children? They're not accusations, they're facts. Carlos found proof. I don't care what your little detective friend found, Jake roared. Amber is my wife, and I trust her. I love her, and nothing you say or do is going to change that. Cares stunned my eyes, blurring my vision. So that's it then. You're choosing her over me? Your own mother? Jake's jaw clenched. You made that choice for me the moment you decided to pull this stunt. I'm done with you, Mom. Done with your lies, your schemes, all of it. He turned to leave and panic seized me. I couldn't lose him, not like this. Jake, please, I called out. But he was already gone, slamming the door behind him with a finality that shook me to my core. I sank to the floor, sobs tearing from my throat. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The truth was supposed to set me free, to bring Jake back to me. Instead, it had only driven him further away. Through my tears, I heard my phone ringing. It was Carlos. I answered, my voice thick and shaky. Diane, what happened? Did it work? A bitter laugh escaped me. No, it didn't work. Jake, he's gone. He chose Amber. There was a pause on the other end, and then Carlos spoke, his tone determined. Then we move on to plan B. We go to the police, get them to reopen the investigation into Amber's ex's death. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. What's the point? It won't change anything. Jake made his choice. This isn't about Jake anymore, Diane, Carlos said firmly. This is about justice, about making sure Amber pays for what she's done, one way or another. I closed my eyes, exhaustion and grief washing over me. Could I do it? Could I really destroy my son's wife, the mother of my grandchildren? But then I remembered the look in Jake's eyes, the venom in his voice, and the way Amber had smirked, so smug and self-satisfied. They had brought this on themselves, and now they would face the consequences. Okay, I whispered, a new resolve hardening in my chest. Let's do it. Let's make her pay. The next few days were a blur of activity. Carlos and I gathered all the evidence he had collected, organizing it into a neat package to present to the police. Maggie was a constant presence, offering support and encouragement whenever my resolve wavered. Finally, the day arrived. We walked into the police station, heads held high, ready to blow the lid off Amber's sordid past. The detective listened intently as we laid out our case, his brow furrowing as he examined the documents and photographs. When we finished, he sat back, a grim expression on his face. This is serious stuff, he said, tapping the file. If what you're saying is true, we have grounds to reopen the investigation into Miss Wilson's ex-boyfriend's death. I felt a surge of vindication. It is true. Every word of it, I affirmed. The detective nodded. All right then, leave this with me and I'll get the ball rolling. We left the station, a sense of anticipation thrumming through me. It was really happening. Amber was finally going to face the music. 2 days later, I received a call from Carlos. Turn on the news, he said, a note of triumph in his voice. I did as he said, my heart pounding as the anchor's face filled the screen. Breaking news, she announced, her expression grave. Local woman Amber Wilson has been arrested in connection with the previously unsolved death of her ex-boyfriend, Mark Thompson. New evidence has come to light, prompting police to reopen the investigation. I watched, transfixed, as they showed footage of Amber being led out of her and Jake's house in handcuffs, her face a mask of shock and anger. Jake followed behind, looking stunned and lost. A fierce satisfaction burned in my chest. She was finally getting what she deserved, but my joy was short-lived. The news report went on to describe how Jake had to use their savings to post Amber's bail and hire a lawyer. It was a financial blow, one that would undoubtedly put a strain on their marriage. I should have felt guilty, knowing that I had played a part in their hardship. But all I could think was that it served them right. They had brought this on themselves with their cruelty and deceit. Over the next few weeks, I watched from afar as the drama unfolded. Amber's arrest had made headlines, and the court of public opinion was merciless. Speculation ran rampant about her involvement in her ex's death, and about what other secrets she might be hiding. Jake put on a brave face, standing by his wife in public, but I could see the toll it was taking. He looked haggard, worn down by the constant scrutiny and whispers. A part of me yearned to reach out, to offer comfort and support, but I hardened my heart, reminding myself of the way he had cast me aside, the vicious words he had hurled at me. He had made his bed, and now he would lie in it. One afternoon, as I was returning from the grocery store, I spotted a familiar figure on my doorstep. It was Jake, his shoulders slumped, his eyes red-rimmed. For a moment, I considered ignoring him, pretending I wasn't home, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I asked coldly as I approached, my arms laden with bags. Jake looked up, his expression a mix of exhaustion and desperation. Emma, I need your help. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, now you need my help. What happened to being done with me and my schemes? He flinched as if I struck him. I know I said some awful things, but this is bigger than that. Amber's in real trouble, Mom. The evidence against her, it's bad. A flicker of unease passed through me. What are you saying? Jake's voice broke. I'm saying I don't know what to do. The lawyer fees alone are bankrupting us. And if Amber goes to prison, I can't raise the kids on my own. I need you, Mom, please. I stared at him, torn between the urge to comfort him and the desire to lash out. He looked so broken, so defeated. But then I remembered the pain he had caused, the way he had abandoned me. I straightened my spine, my voice like ice. You should have thought of that before you turned your back on me. I'm sorry, Jake, but you're on your own. With that, I brushed past him, ignoring his pleas and apologies. He had made his choice, and now he would live with the consequences. A few days after Jake's desperate visit, I received an unexpected call. It was Amber's mother, her voice tight with barely contained anger. Diane, I know we've had our differences, but I need to ask a favor, she said, the words seeming to pain her. I felt a flicker of surprise. What kind of favor? It's the kids. With everything going on with Amber's case, Jake's struggling to keep up. He needs a break. I was hoping you could take the children for the weekend. I hesitated, torn. On one hand, the thought of spending time with my grandchildren filled me with longing. It had been so long since I'd seen them. But on the other, the idea of doing anything to help Jake and Amber after everything they'd done. Please, Diane, Amber's mother pressed, as if sensing my reluctance. I know you love those kids. They need some stability right now, and Lord knows they won't get it from Jake or Amber. I sighed, my resolve crumbling. She was right. Whatever issues I had with their parents, my grandchildren were innocent. They deserve better than to be caught in the middle of this mess. All right, I agreed. I'll take them for the weekend, but I'm doing this for them, not for Jake or Amber. Of course. Thank you, Diane. I'll let Jake know to drop them off Friday evening. True to her word, Jake arrived on my doorstep that Friday, the kids in tow. He looked even worse than the last time I'd seen him, his face gaunt and shadowed. Mom, he greeted me, his voice hoarse. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I nodded stiffly, my attention on the children. They looked up at me, their eyes wide and uncertain. Grandma, my granddaughter cried, breaking into a smile. She rushed forward, wrapping her little arms around my waist. I hugged her back, blinking back sudden tears. Hello, sweetheart. I missed you. My grandson was more reserved, hovering by Jake's side. I knelt down, opening my arms. Come here, buddy. It's okay. Slowly, he stepped into my embrace, his small body trembling. My heart ached for him, for both of them. Jake cleared his throat. I'll pick them up Sunday evening. If anything comes up, just give me a call. I straightened, meeting his gaze coolly. We'll be fine. Enjoy your weekend. With a final nod, he left, leaving me alone with the kids. I took a deep breath, forcing a smile. Who wants pizza for dinner? The weekend passed in a blur of laughter, games, and stories. For a little while, I was able to forget the drama and heartache, lost in the simple joy of being with my grandchildren. But all too soon, it was over. Jake arrived to collect the kids, his expression guarded as they gathered their things. Grandma, can we come stay with you again soon? We had so much fun. My granddaughter tugged on my hand. I smiled, smoothing her hair. Of course, honey. Anytime you want. Jake's jaw tightened. We should get going. Say goodbye, kids. They hugged me tightly, their little faces sad. I watched as they climbed into Jake's car, my heart heavy. As he prepared to leave, Jake paused, turning back to me. Listen, Mom, about what they said. I don't want you getting any ideas. This was a one-time thing. I bristled, anger sparking. Excuse me. You think I'm trying to turn them against you? Wouldn't be the first time, he muttered. I saw red. How? How dare you? I have done nothing but love and support those children, which is more than I can say for you and Amber. You're so wrapped up in your own drama, you can't even see how much they're hurting. Jake's face flushed. You have no idea what we're going through, no idea the stress, the pressure. And whose fault is that? I cut him off. You chose this, Jake. You chose Amber and all the chaos that comes with her. Don't you dare put that on me. He stared at me, his eyes hard. This isn't over, Mom. I won't let you poison my kids against me the way you did with Dad. With that, he got in the car and drove away, leaving me shaking with rage and hurt. I stood there watching until the car disappeared from view, a cold determination settling over me. If Jake wanted to play hardball, then so be it. I was done playing nice. It was time to settle this once and for all. The day of Amber's trial arrived cold and gray. I dressed with care, choosing a somber black suit that radiated quiet authority. Maggie picked me up, her face set with grim determination. Are you ready for this? She asked as we drove to the courthouse. I nodded, my jaw tight. I've been ready for a long time. We met Carlos on the steps, his expression serious. I've got a surprise for you, he said, leading us inside. I tracked down Mark Thompson's family. They're here to testify. I felt a surge of gratitude and vindication. With their testimony, Amber's fate would be sealed. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. I took my seat behind the prosecutor's table, my heart pounding as Amber was led in, her wrists and ankles shackled. She looked pale and drawn, but her eyes still glittered with malice when they met mine. Jake sat stiffly beside her, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. I looked away, focusing on the judge as he called the court to order. The trial was a grueling, emotional affair. The prosecutor laid out the evidence against Amber in damning detail, painting a picture of a cruel, calculating woman who would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. But it was the testimony of Mark Thompson's family that truly sealed her fate. His mother, a frail, silver-haired woman, spoke of her son's kind heart, his bright future cut short. His sister wept as she recounted Amber's controlling, abusive behavior, how she had isolated Mark from his loved ones. Through it all, Amber sat stone-faced, her eyes cold and empty. Jake grew more and more agitated, his knee bouncing, his hands clenched into fists. Finally, it was time for the verdict. The jury filed back in, their faces somber. The foreman stood, clearing his throat. In the matter of the state versus Amber Wilson, on the charge of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. Amber's face drained of color, her mouth falling open in shock. Jake leaped to his feet, his chair clattering to the floor. "No," he shouted, his voice raw with anguish. "No, this is wrong. She's innocent." The judge banged his gavel, calling for order. "Mr. Wilson, control yourself, or I will have you removed from this courtroom." Jake subsided, collapsing back into his seat, his head in his hands. Amber turned to him, her expression desperate. "Jake, do something. You can't let them do this to me." But Jake wouldn't look at her, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The bailiff stepped forward, preparing to lead Amber away. I watched, a strange mix of emotions swirling within me. Triumph, yes, but also a hollow sort of sadness. It had come to this, my own son, broken and humiliated, his love life in ruins. As Amber was escorted out, she turned back, her eyes locking with mine. In that moment, I saw the depth of her hatred, the venom in her soul. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice low and deadly. "I'll make you pay for this. I swear it." I met her gaze steadily, unflinching. "You've already paid, Amber. You made your choices, and now you'll face the consequences. Goodbye." With that, I turned and walked out, my head held high. It was over. Justice had been served. But even as relief washed over me, I couldn't shake the lingering unease. Jake's anguished face haunted me. Had I gone too far? Had my quest for vengeance blinded me to the collateral damage? I shook my head, pushing the doubts aside. No, Jake had made his bed, and now he would lie in it. He had chosen Amber, chosen to turn his back on me. Now he would have to live with the fallout. I stepped out into the cold, gray day, drawing my coat tighter around me. It was time to move on, to build a new life for myself, a life without Jake, without Amber's toxic influence, a life of my own making.